At the beginning of the story, we see Michael Jackson preparing to go on stage to sing and dance. He already appears to be a well-established performer. However, the scene quickly shifts, and the story moves into a flashback. The year is 1966. We are shown a city in America called Gary, Indiana. In a small house in this city, Michael lived with his 4 brothers and his parents. Michael was the youngest in the family. He would often look out the window and watch other children playing outside, but he wasn't allowed to join them. His father wouldn't let him go out and play. The family was struggling financially. Because of this, his father wanted his 5 sons to do something that could improve their situation. From a very young age, Michael had to practice performing with his older brothers for stage shows. Michael had an incredibly beautiful singing voice. His father, Joseph, would gather all the boys together and give them advice on how they could become rich and famous through music. Day by day, their skills improved. Eventually, Joseph named their group the Jackson 5, using their family name. Soon after, the scene changes again. One day, the Jackson 5 was selected to perform at a party. Michael and his brothers delivered an amazing performance. While singing, Michael also danced, moving his feet in unique and expressive ways that captivated the audience. However, when they returned home that night, Michael's father didn't like his dancing. He took off his belt and beat Michael harshly. In fact, Joseph was often extremely strict and abusive toward his children. Because Michael couldn't play like other kids, he would secretly read comic books at night. One of his favorites was Peter Pan. Time passed like this, and Michael and his brothers continued performing at various parties. Gradually, the name the Jackson 5 started to gain recognition. A few years later, around 1970, we see Michael and his brothers performing again at a party. Their popularity had grown so much that a major music producer named Barry approached Michael's father. He expressed interest in recording a solo song with Michael. Following this, Michael recorded a solo track at Barry's music company. The producer quickly realized that Michael had extraordinary talent and believed he would go very far in life. The song became a top-ranking hit, and Michael went viral almost overnight. About a year later, in 1971, Michael's family had earned a significant amount of money. They were able to buy a much larger and better home. Meanwhile, Michael's popularity continued to grow. Because of their new wealth and fame, his father even hired a bodyguard named Bill for Michael. Since Michael never had the chance to enjoy a normal childhood, he spent his free time watching TV or cartoons whenever he could. As more time passed, Michael performed at a major show. His singing and dancing were so captivating that not only the general audience but also young girls became completely mesmerized by him. His popularity increased even more. Several years went by. About 7 years later, Michael had grown into a young man. Around this time, he met one of the most influential producers in the music industry, Quincy Jones. The producer tells Michael that they want to create a new album with him, where he would work alone. In other words, the producer intended to leave out his 4 brothers. Michael found it difficult to make a decision because his father still handled everything. So, 2 representatives from the producer's side met with Michael's father to discuss the matter. His father insisted that Michael was part of the Jackson 5, and wherever Michael performed, his brothers would go with him. To him, it was about family. However, the production company only wanted Michael as a solo artist. When they couldn't reach an agreement, the meeting ended without any deal. But eventually, Michael agreed to work with Quincy Jones on his own. This time, his father also gave his approval. As Michael's songs became increasingly popular, people across the city began to recognize him. The scene shifts again. Whenever Michael had free time, he would spend it with animals, and he often visited hospitals to spend time with children. One day, he bought a chimpanzee and decided to keep it as his companion. He even gave it a name, Bubbles. However, Michael's father strongly disapproved of this. All he cared about was making money. He feared that if Michael became distracted, it might affect his ambitions and financial goals. Still, since Michael was now grown up and earning money, his father couldn't control him as much as before. One day, Michael was looking at his childhood comic book while sitting with his chimpanzee. That comic book had been his escape during childhood. It featured Peter Pan, who looked charming and had a very attractive nose. Inspired by this, Michael decided that since he now had money, he would get surgery to reshape his nose to look like Peter Pan's. He went to the hospital and underwent the operation, refining the appearance of his nose. Afterward, he looked at himself in the mirror and began to think, "I'm such a popular celebrity, yet my appearance isn't attractive." From that moment on, he slowly started planning to change and improve his overall appearance. As time passed, Michael had a meeting with his family. At that time, his father was still acting as the manager of their music company. His father proposed that they go on tours and perform in different places to earn millions of dollars. However, Michael disagreed. He said that he preferred working on his own. This made his father extremely angry. He was about to hit Michael again, but Michael stormed out in frustration. Meanwhile, Michael's longtime bodyguard, Bill, was still with him. Over time, they had developed a close bond. Michael shared his feelings with Bill, telling him how his father had been abusive since childhood and how he no longer wanted to live that way. Bill advised him, "You're grown up now. It's time to choose your own path. You should separate from your family." Later at a meeting, Michael was introduced, through Bill, to a highly respected lawyer named John. When Michael Michael asked for his help, John told him that if he truly wanted to succeed in life, he needed to remove his father from the position of manager. John himself wanted to take on that role, as he had already realized that Michael was destined to become an even bigger superstar in the future. When Michael's father found out about this, he became extremely angry. He said, "Did I ever want anything bad for them? Michael is famous today because of me. If I hadn't trained them since childhood, would they have ever made it this far?" At that point, Michael's mother tried to calm him down, saying that Michael was now grown up and should be allowed to live his own life, but his father refused to accept it. Meanwhile, Michael set up a studio in his own home. He constantly worked on new ideas, always thinking about how he could improve and become even more popular with audiences. One day, while watching the news on TV, he saw reports about certain mafia groups in America, mostly made up of black individuals, engaging in violent activities among themselves. Michael felt that these people needed guidance to move away from that lifestyle. So one day, Michael went to meet them, accompanied by his bodyguard. He spoke to them and tried to motivate them to change their lives. This shows that Michael wasn't just a great singer and dancer, he also had a kind heart and the ability to connect with people deeply and influence them. For his next show, Michael began preparing with these individuals, since they also loved music and dancing. When the day of the performance arrived, Michael created a song called Beat It featuring them, and it became hugely popular at the time. After that, Michael continued planning new ideas. One day, while watching a horror film on TV, he came up with a concept. What if he created a horror-themed dance track? Inspired by this idea, he worked incredibly hard. The result was a performance that made him extremely popular across the United States. This became one of his most famous songs and dance routines, Thriller, where his appearance had a ghostly, eerie look. Michael's popularity grew so massive that whenever people spotted him, crowds would gather to take photos and interviews, often causing heavy traffic jams in the streets. One day, a boxing promoter named Don King visited Michael's father on behalf of the Pepsi company. He proposed that if Michael performed with his brothers on a group tour, they could earn a huge amount of money. Michael's father, who was very driven by financial gain, casually agreed and said he would convince Michael. He even accepted an advance payment. Later that night, Michael was watching a famous Charlie Chaplin film on TV when his father came in and began persuading him. He said, "You should perform with your brothers. They're your family. Don't try to succeed alone by leaving them behind. We're already neglected as black people in society." Using emotional arguments like this, he eventually convinced Michael. The Pepsi-sponsored show began, but during the performance, a serious accident occurred. Michael's hair caught on fire due to a technical mistake. Although the fire was quickly put out, he was rushed to the hospital. Doctors later confirmed that a significant portion of the back of his scalp had been burned, and he would need several months to recover. Michael was already very sensitive about his appearance, and this incident made it even harder for him as he lost his signature curly hair. In later performances, he wore artificial hair as his natural hair had been damaged. While Michael was in the hospital, his lawyer came to visit him and said, "We've filed a lawsuit against Pepsi. Your condition today is the result of their negligence." Meanwhile, since Michael's father had already taken a large amount of money from the Pepsi company, he was extremely stressed and upset. He knew that if Michael couldn't perform in the upcoming shows, they would have to return all that money. At that point, Michael's mother tried to calm him down, saying, "We already have enough. Just let it go. Let Michael live his life the way he wants." The scene shifts, and many years pass. In 1984, Michael performed one last time with his four brothers at Dodger Stadium, where millions of fans had gathered. At the end of the show, Michael addressed the audience and said, "This is my last performance with my brothers. I want to move forward and do things on my own." That night, the five brothers delivered a performance that shook all of America. However, Michael's father was furious after hearing his decision. He said, "You're leaving your family behind. I never expected this from you. They are your brothers. How can you rise to the top without them?" But Michael didn't listen. He walked away and chose his own path. From that point on, he began shaping his life on his own terms. In 1988, we see Michael again at a massive event in London, performing in front of a huge crowd of fans. And with that, the first part of the story comes to an end. It's unclear when the second part will be released. So, friends, that's it for the movie explanation. Next, we'll move on to a full movie breakdown, where we'll dive deeper into the details and explain the subtle elements and twists more thoroughly.
At the very beginning of the movie, we see Michael Jackson. From his current condition, it seems like he is now a huge superstar, someone recognized all over the world. Michael Jackson was heading to a show along with his team, and we could see his big curly hair. But do you know the truth? That hair wasn't actually Michael Jackson's real hair. It was fake. As we mentioned earlier, we'll break down every twist in this movie step by step. The reason we're calling it fake hair has already been explained. That when Michael Jackson was performing at an event for the Pepsi company, his hair accidentally caught fire. Because of that accident, his real hair was badly burned and damaged. So the hair he had later was fake. We'll try to explain all the twists, step by step. But did Michael Jackson achieve success overnight? How did success come into his life? This story takes us into a flashback. The movie goes back to the year 1966. Many years ago, we are shown a small town in Indiana, a very small city in America. It's not a place where wealthy people live. Instead, it's a poor area where underprivileged people reside. In 1966, we see young Michael. The kids from his neighborhood were outside playing, but Michael was watching them through a window. Why was he just watching instead of playing with them? There's a deeper story behind that, which we'll learn gradually. But to reveal a bit of the twist, Michael's family was very poor. There were 7 members in total: his father, mother, Michael, and his 4 brothers. Because of their financial struggles, it was very difficult to support a family of 7. That's why Michael's father pushed him from a young age to focus on work rather than play. Gradually, Michael had to give up his desire to play with other kids because he needed to earn money. Then the scene changes, and we see Michael's father training his 4 older brothers. Michael was the youngest in the family. His father is shown scolding him with hand gestures, telling him to forget about playing and focus on work because they needed to make a lot of money. And just like that, he grabbed Michael's hand. At first, Michael didn't agree. He was always afraid of his father. But his father forced him to stand with his brothers and began teaching them that they would conquer the world through music. He trained all 5 brothers together, including Michael. However, from Michael's facial expression, it was clear that he wasn't happy with what his father was doing. At that age, he still had a childlike innocence, but his father was taking that away from him. Michael felt very upset. Eventually, he had no choice but to stop playing with his friends and start practicing music with his brothers. Meanwhile, Michael's father kept advising them, saying, "No matter what happens, we must achieve something in life. We will master music in such a way that we become famous all over the world very quickly and earn a lot of money." His father was somewhat greedy for money, which is why he even pushed his young child into work. In reality, child labor is a very bad and punishable offense. Soon, Michael and his brothers began performing shows. Their father gave their group a new name, Jackson 5. Jackson was their family name, which is why the group was called Jackson 5. If we look at their father's name, it was Joseph Jackson. That's why all of them had Jackson at the end of their names, including Michael and his brothers. Anyway, their father trained them intensively, teaching them how to perform in big shows and how to improve quickly through practice. Among the 5 brothers, Michael's voice was incredibly beautiful. He sang so well that, as we'll see later in the movie, millions of people would go crazy over him. Their practice continued regularly. Their mother would just stand and watch everything, while their father kept guiding them step by step on what to do next. He had a strong understanding of music. Here, we also see Michael's mother. Her name is Kat. But don't get confused. It's not referring to a cat. Actually, Kat is her name. Michael's mother was a very soft-hearted person. She told Michael's father, "At least let Michael go during the children's study time. You can make the other 4 work." In response, his father said, "What's the point of just studying? I've studied too. But if studying only leads to the burden of running a family and living in financial hardship, then what's the use of it?" It's better they focus on music. They'll earn a lot of money, and will be able to live comfortably. Here, Michael's father did make a valid point. In life, formal education isn't everything. It's not true that you can only become wealthy through institutional education. In reality, becoming wealthy requires hard work and business. Their music and performance system is also like a business. This is exactly what Michael's father was trying to explain to his mother. Meanwhile, day after day, Michael and his brothers kept practicing continuously. Their mother watched from a distance and kept thinking, if only Michael could go to school and study at this age, it would have been so much better. There's a common misconception that formal education and certificates are everything. But Michael's father broke that idea. Michael couldn't even properly complete school. Yet by the end of the movie, we see how famous he became. There are very few people who don't know Michael Jackson. His popularity is so massive that his name is celebrated worldwide, and his dances and songs still touch people's hearts. Despite that, he didn't have a formal education. Still, Michael's mother believed that at least basic education was necessary, but Michael didn't receive that from his family due to their financial struggles. Later, at night, the whole family was having dinner together. Michael's mother and everyone else were enjoying themselves, but his father had no smile on his face. He was under a lot of pressure. He had to run the household and support such a big family with 5 sons. He had to put food on their plates and keep them happy. Because of this, he always looked worried and depressed. From his eyes and facial expressions, it seemed like he was living in constant fear. They were living in a place in America where it snowed most of the time, and there weren't many job opportunities. With such poverty and a large family to support, Michael's father was always stressed and anxious. Moving forward, we see Kat once again telling Michael's father, "Look, I've told you before, and I'm telling you again. Please let Michael go. He's still just a child. Whether you want to make the other 4 do shows or other work, that's up to you. But I strongly request you to leave Michael out of this." But Michael's father responded the same way, saying, "No, I've named the group Jackson 5. I can't change that. Michael is a member of this family. There's no need to waste time and money on education. From a young age, they need to do something so that Michael and his 4 brothers can support the family and improve our financial condition." The biggest problem for him was money. Because of financial issues, he remained depressed most of the time. As we move ahead, Michael's father also says, "Michael's singing voice is incredibly beautiful. I believe if his songs start going viral, we'll become rich very soon." So, that night's dinner ends like this, and everyone goes to sleep. The next day, we see Michael's father once again training the 5 brothers, teaching them how to make music, how to sing, and how to dance in rhythm. After some time, good news comes for Michael's family. The 5 brothers, known as the Jackson 5, receive an invitation to perform at a music show. They go there and perform joyfully. Since Michael was the youngest, he was put in front. Michael sang while his 4 brothers supported him in harmony. The party became very lively, and the audience got fully engaged. They started dancing and singing along with them. Everyone was enjoying the performance. At one point, Michael performed a special foot dance. He later became extremely famous for his footwork. That iconic 45-degree angle move. I'm referring to Michael in his later, perfected and popular stage of life. At a 45-degree angle, the way Michael was leaning forward was truly unbelievable. An ordinary person couldn't do that. In fact, Michael had to put in a lot of effort to achieve it. Anyway, the way Michael was dancing with different movements of his feet made the audience so happy that they started throwing coins toward his feet. Michael's father was watching all of this from a distance, but he didn't take it well. Actually, Michael's father wanted his children to perform exactly the way he wanted. But Michael didn't do that. Instead, he was dancing with various foot movements, and seeing this made his father extremely angry. After that, the show ended. They had a van, and at that time they were heading home at night in an old model American van. When they got home, all the brothers were very happy, because even though it was their first show, it had gone so well that they became very popular and well-liked by the audience. The crowd had also been dancing along with them enthusiastically. But after coming inside, Michael's father had a very angry expression on his face. He scolded everyone a bit and gave them some advice, telling them not to do this kind of thing again in the future. You have to follow my instructions exactly the way I give them. But today, among all of you, Michael broke the rules. Because of this, Michael's father became extremely angry and harshly scolded him. He said, "Why were you dancing like that, moving your feet in such exaggerated ways? It drew the audience's attention to your feet. And that makes me feel bad. People's attention should always be on the face of the lead performer or singer. But instead, all the audience members were looking at your feet and throwing coins toward them, which I really didn't like." Because of this, Michael's father took off his belt and beat him severely. In reality, Michael's father was always under depression, mainly due to financial stress. Because of that, he didn't treat his children well. He would get angry very easily and beat his sons. The older ones followed their father's instructions, but Michael had a more absent-minded and free-spirited nature from a young age, so he couldn't always obey his father. That's why his father beat him badly with a belt. Seeing their father's angry face, the other brothers became extremely frightened and started crying. Meanwhile, Michael's mother was watching everything from a distance, silently. She had nothing to say. On one hand, the family was struggling financially, and on the other, there were so many children to take care of. She was also constantly under stress, worrying about how the family would survive. Anyway, that's where the events of that day come to an end. Later, we see that at night, when everyone was asleep, Michael was reading a comic book under a small light. Peter Pan. Who is Peter Pan? He was a famous cartoon character of that time. Michael was reading that comic because his father had taken away the joys of his childhood. His father was making him work like a child laborer, and because of that, he had lost the feeling of childhood happiness. So whenever he got time, or whenever everyone fell asleep, he would secretly read comic books and enjoy those small moments of childhood joy. In those comics, there were terrifying wizards, monsters, crocodiles, and Peter Pan, who was his hero. He would read these and find great joy. Anyway, this was that famous cartoon character of the time, Peter Pan. And that was the wizard from the story. Back then, this comic was extremely popular among children all across America. As we move forward, we notice the expression in Michael's eyes, such a soft and emotional look, as if he wanted to go back to his childhood, away from all the music and pressure. But what could he do? This is what happens when someone has a father like that. In short, Michael was going through mental torture from a very young age. Okay, let's say he had an incredibly beautiful singing voice. But does that mean such a young child should be forced into labor? There were older brothers already performing, so why involve Michael too? Anyway, the scene changes. We see Michael and his brothers starting to practice even more intensely because they had already made a huge impact with their very first show. Their first performance was so amazing that the audience sang and danced along with them. we continue to see their practice. They kept rehearsing day after day at home. Gradually, they started receiving offers from different parties and events, where Michael was kept as the main performer because his voice was unbelievably beautiful. Michael would sing, while his brothers supported him with harmonies and danced alongside him. In short, the five brothers together were taking the Jackson 5 group to another level. However, toward the end of the movie, there is a very sad part. Michael eventually left his family and brothers to pursue his journey alone, which was truly heartbreaking. Anyway, they continued performing at different parties and events, gradually earning money. Because of this, their family slowly started becoming financially stable again. Meanwhile, at home, Michael would try to imitate famous dancers and performers of that time. He especially tried to copy the footwork of popular pop stars because from a young age, Michael always wanted to learn something unique, something that would set him apart from everyone else. The type of footwork Michael practiced was very popular in America at that time. Even the famous actor Charlie Chaplin used to dance in a similar way. Gradually, Michael's father started feeling some relief, and the family became more stable, since his 5 sons were now earning money under his guidance. A single branded show would pay quite well, enough to support the family for about 15 days to a month. So, the worries that Michael's father had were reduced to some extent. Anyway, as we move forward, we see that Michael's father kept training them one after another. But one thing must be said. After gaining fame later on, Michael eventually left his family behind. But Michael had forgotten that his father's role behind his success was 100%. If his father hadn't trained him like this, Michael would never have come this far. Of course, luck also plays a role, but his father stayed like a constant shadow, giving them one training after another. That's how Michael was trained. Day by day, the Jackson 5 began to improve, and gradually they started wearing better clothes and performing at bigger brand shows. Before, they used to perform at small parties, but now they were performing at large events and earning much better money. One thing to notice is that Michael was much younger than his brothers. Each of his brothers was around 14, 15, 16, 17, even 18 years old, while Michael was only about 6 or 7 years old, a complete child. Using such a young child for labor is obviously very wrong. Later, Michael himself talked about this. In the middle of the movie, there's a scene where his father tries to slap him, and by that time, Michael already had a bodyguard after becoming a superstar. Michael tells his bodyguard that his father used to abuse him like this and mentally torture him from childhood. Anyway, as time passed, Michael grew older, and his popularity kept increasing. The Jackson 5 also became widely known. Since Michael was the youngest performer, he attracted the most attention. Compared to his 4 brothers, the focus was more on Michael. He also had a very beautiful smile, and this smile made him even more popular. As time went on, they kept performing regularly at home, dancing and doing shows and events. Gradually, their financial struggles began to disappear. Then the scene shifts to a few years later, 1970. In that year, a party is shown where Michael and his 4 brothers were wearing blue outfits. At that party, they performed with a famous female artist, singing and dancing together. Their group, the Jackson 5, entertained the crowd tremendously. And after this 1970 performance, Michael Jackson slowly started gaining major popularity. After that show, a famous producer noticed Michael's voice. That producer's name was Barry, one of the big producers of that time. Before that, we see a scene at the party where a girl named Susie, who was Barry's assistant, gives Michael's father a card and says, "Your son has an incredible voice. He will soon reach a very high level. You should definitely meet with our music company." Following that, one day Michael Jackson, his 4 brothers, and his father receive an invitation to a production company, where they meet Barry and Susie. Susie introduces them to Barry. Barry was one of the most famous music producers of that time. Barry then tells Michael's father, "We want to record a solo song with Michael." That means they wanted to leave out his 4 brothers and focus only on Michael. Because, as mentioned earlier, his voice was so beautiful that the producer was amazed by it. Anyway, Michael's recording session begins. Back then, there were no modern devices like mobile phones or even cassette players like in the 90s. Music was recorded on large discs, and music itself was extremely popular at that time. Nowadays, everyone has smartphones and stays busy with YouTube and Facebook all day, so music doesn't get the same kind of appreciation as before. At the studio, the producer Barry watches Michael with great amazement. Hearing his voice leaves him stunned. Michael's voice was incredibly beautiful, and his ability to dance while singing was also extraordinary. Seeing this, another producer present there, Reddy, was also amazed and thought to himself, "This boy will shake the whole world one day." And indeed, that prediction came true. Talented people can recognize true talent and understand how far someone can go in life. As Michael's song was being recorded, a huge smile appeared on the producer's face. After the recording ended, the producer praised Michael Jackson highly and said, "Your voice is absolutely incredible." He also told him, "Keep moving forward. I believe you will soon become a world-famous superstar. And we also loved your dancing, along with your singing." These were the exact words the producer was saying to Michael. From a distance, Michael's father was listening to all of this. There was a sense of reassurance in his eyes and face, as if he believed that, through Michael, their family's financial situation could finally be secured, and one day they could become wealthy in America. Anyway, every father has dreams in his heart. It was Michael's father who, through relentless effort, took away Michael's childhood and made him sing. He knew that without Michael, the Jackson 5 would be incomplete, because none of the other brothers had a voice as beautiful as Michael's. As time went on, Michael's songs continued to be recorded in different places, and he began performing one program after another at various parties. But Michael wasn't alone. He performed with his 4 brothers. In this way, new records started being released under the name of the Jackson 5. Saying just Michael would be incorrect now, because many records were being released as Jackson 5. That production company kept releasing one record after another. Soon, almost overnight, Michael and his brothers started going viral. They were even being interviewed on television. At that time, television was a very rare thing. Only wealthy people had TVs in their homes. If someone had a television or cassette system, they were considered rich. But here, we see Michael and his 4 brothers appearing on TV shows, with Michael sitting at the center as the main focus. Then we move to the year 1971. Within about a year, the music producer Reddy created several albums for Michael. Those albums became some of the most famous albums of that time, and their songs entered the top music charts. The Jackson 5 brand became widely recognized. Because of this success, Michael and his family earned a lot of money. We clearly see that Michael's father bought a beautiful house with that money, and they started living in a luxurious home. That's what happens when money comes in. People no longer stay in poverty. Earlier, They used to live in a poor area called Gary, where most people struggled just to survive day by day. But now, Michael's father bought a large, luxurious house equipped with air conditioning and all modern comforts. The appearance of the house, both inside and outside, clearly showed their wealth. When Michael came home, he saw that his father had hired someone for him, a bodyguard. That's what happens when you have money. Even such a young child gets a bodyguard. Michael's father said, "This is Bill. From today, he will take care of you. He will always stay with you and look after you." Since the Jackson 5 had become popular mainly because of Michael, his father made Bill his personal bodyguard. Michael was very happy to meet Bill. Bill was a very friendly person. We see later in the movie that he stayed with Michael until the end of the first part. Whether he was in the second part or not is unclear. But in the first part, we even see him when Michael was hospitalized after his head caught fire. Bill tried his best to save him. Then the scene changes again. We see that at night, since Michael didn't have any formal education, because his father never allowed him to study, he would spend his free time eating popcorn with his mother and watching TV shows and cartoons. He loved watching TV and cartoons. Even as an adult, Michael continued to enjoy cartoons. When he was around 20 years old and hospitalized after the accident, he would still spend his time watching cartoons in the hospital. This is how Michael passed his time. At the same time, he was learning and mastering the dance and singing techniques of famous artists and actors of that era. Meanwhile, their financial condition improved greatly. They were now living in a good house, eating good food at a proper dining table, and Michael's mother looked happy and free from worry. Not long ago, they had been struggling financially. Michael also spent a lot of time with his mother, since he was the youngest in the family. And usually, the youngest child receives the most affection from parents and relatives. Then the scene changes again as we move forward. We see that, inspired by his father, Michael had become well-established. He goes to a party called the Fair East State Show. At this Fair East State Show, Michael sang so beautifully that the young girls in the audience went completely crazy over his performance. They started screaming loudly, and it felt like Michael shook the entire club that night. His brothers were there with him too, supporting from the side and harmonizing with the music. This is how the days kept passing. Michael and his brothers, as the Jackson 5, kept growing in popularity. As time went on, their fame continued to rise, and 7 years passed like this. Now we see that Michael has stepped into his youth. He has grown up, and his appearance has changed. The curly hair we see on Michael now is actually his real hair. Yes, at this point it's real. Later, after the fire incident, we'll see hair that looks exactly like this. But those will be artificial. Anyway, at this time, Michael meets a famous music producer named Quachin John. Michael was still young, and his father was managing everything for him. During the meeting, Quachin John tells Michael, "We want to create an album with you that will go viral worldwide, and you'll be able to earn a lot of money from it. But there was one condition. They wanted a solo performance. In America at that time, solo meant performing alone. Michael usually performed with his brothers as part of the Jackson 5. But this producer didn't want the group. He wanted only Michael to perform alone in a solo song. Michael listened with a smile while talking to the producer. There were also 2 assistants with the producer, and they told Michael, "If you agree to do a solo song, we'll work with you." Michael replied, "Look, I'm still young, and my father is my manager. I can't make this decision. You'll have to talk to my father about it." After hearing this, The two assistants went directly to meet Michael's father. They told him, "Your son Michael has an incredibly beautiful voice, and we really like it. We want to record songs only with him." In response, Michael's father said, "Michael is part of our family, and he belongs to the Jackson 5. I will never let him perform without his family. If Michael sings, he will sing with his brothers." His father understood that Michael had extraordinary talent, and that's why everyone wanted only him. But as a father, he thought about all his sons equally. If everyone focused only on Michael, what would happen to the other 4? In that sense, he was fulfilling his responsibility fairly. He didn't show more love to one child and less to another, which is something an ideal father should do. However, one negative thing was that he made Michael work hard as a child, taking away his childhood. Anyway, Michael's father firmly said, "This is not possible. I cannot sign this agreement. If there's going to be singing, dancing, or albums, then all 5 brothers of the Jackson 5 must be included. Michael alone cannot do it." Hearing this, the two assistants were clearly unhappy. Their facial expressions showed their disappointment. And they left. The scene shifts again. From childhood, Michael had a very soft heart, like that of a little kid. He loved spending time with children, playing with them, and he had a strong bond with animals. Because of this, he even bought a horse. However, his father didn't like that, because he wanted Michael to stay focused on work all the time. They had big dreams and wanted to earn a lot of money, and he wanted all 5 brothers to become successful. So his father scolded him a bit. But later, he changed his decision. He realized that even with a solo song, they could earn a lot of money. So he agreed and allowed Michael to do the solo project. After that, Michael went to the music company and recorded his first song at Quachin John's studio. His songs quickly became extremely popular, and along with them, his dance moves amazed all of America. His dance style was so unique and impressive that it left people stunned, especially considering how admired dance already was in America at that time. He is the music producer named Quachin John. He was very happy with Michael's song, because his music company was about to reach a great position thanks to an artist like Michael. Because of that album, Michael Jackson went viral overnight and became extremely popular. Whenever he went out on the streets, people started taking pictures of him. If you look closely, you can see many police cars surrounding him, along with crowds of fans and followers, which even caused traffic jams on the road. Anyway, Michael's popularity increased massively overnight. His clothing style also changed a lot. Now, let's reveal a twist in the next step. There are many negative rumors about Michael, that he sexually harassed children. But this was never properly proven. In reality, even as he grew older, Michael had the heart of a child. That's why he loved children very much. He spent time with them, and even slept on the same bed with them. But that does not mean he sexually harassed them. This idea is actually wrong. Michael often went to different hospitals with his bodyguard Bill, where he spent time with sick children, including those suffering from cancer and other serious illnesses. He even donated part of his income to help them. So, from the heart, Michael was a very good person. The rumors spread about him were not true, because, as I said before, mentally he was like a child. One day, something unusual happened. At his house, Michael ordered a chimpanzee. He loved animals and children and enjoyed spending time with them. Since his father never allowed him to play as a child and put family responsibilities on him from a very young age, Michael became mentally affected. That's why later, to fulfill his desires, he spent time with children. Now he had a lot of money and was a famous person, so he could fulfill his wishes. So one day he ordered a baby chimpanzee. It was brought from a zoo by a man in a vehicle and handed over to Michael. The chimpanzee was wearing Pampers. So, when Michael saw the baby chimpanzee, he became very happy. The chimpanzee was also very innocent and quickly bonded with Michael like a friend. Michael even gave the chimpanzee a name, Bubbles. However, something unusual happened here. Michael's father could not accept this at all. As I mentioned earlier, although his father had some qualities of an ideal parent, he was extremely money-driven. He saw Michael more like a money-making machine. He told Michael, "You need to dream big in life. Is this the time to play with a chimpanzee?" But Michael didn't listen to him. He said, "I love animals. That's why I brought him." His father told him to return the chimpanzee to where it came from, but Michael ignored him. At the same time, his father couldn't do much about it. Michael was the only real source of income for the family. His songs were going viral, his records were selling massively, and the family had become wealthy because of him. His father knew the other 4 brothers couldn't achieve the same success. That's why he didn't get too angry or strict with Michael. Meanwhile, Michael spent most of his time at home playing with the chimpanzee. Whenever he wasn't doing shows, he stayed with it. He even kept the chimpanzee in diapers all the time, since it was still a baby, and he didn't want it to mess up their luxurious house. He enjoyed spending a lot of time with it. One day, Michael took out his childhood comic book of Peter Pan, which he used to read when he was younger. He focused especially on Peter Pan's nose. This is something important. Michael was not satisfied with his own appearance. Personally, this is something that feels unfortunate. People should be content with what they are given. But Michael chose to change his appearance through surgery. There could be another reason behind this. Michael was black, and at that time in America, black people were often treated unfairly and looked down upon. When he looked at Peter Pan's nose and facial structure, he liked it very much. He started thinking, what if his face looked like that? So Michael decided to have surgery. Since he now had a lot of money, it was possible. First, he decided to fix his nose, making it sharper and more defined like Peter Pan's. As he thought, he acted on it. One day, Michael went to a clinic and told the doctor that he wanted to reshape his nose. The doctor asked why he made this decision. Michael replied, "I'm a superstar. A lot of people interview me. If my appearance isn't good, how does that look?" Eventually, he convinced the doctor, and in exchange for a large amount of money, the doctor agreed to perform the surgery. The surgery began, and the doctor tried to shape Michael's nose the way he wanted. Finally, the surgery was completed. Michael returned home with a bandage on his nose, wearing glasses and a head covering. From a distance, his father was watching and even smiling. He didn't say much. For him, money was the main concern. As long as money was coming in, he didn't care what Michael changed, whether it was his nose or anything else. He just looked at Michael with a bit of surprise and made a light joke. Michael looked back at his father and said that he had reshaped his nose through surgery. Now his nose was fixed. Standing in front of the mirror, he checked himself carefully and felt that his nose looked much better than before. But here's one thing. Michael felt that if his appearance were a bit more attractive, it would be better. Because of that, he was unhappy with how he looked. At that time in America, black people were often not treated well. We know that later, Michael Jackson went through procedures that made his skin appear much lighter. Anyway, that's another matter. In my opinion, popularity doesn't come from looks. It comes from talent and work. Michael didn't become famous because of his appearance. He became popular because of his incredible voice and unique dance style. Still, Michael decided that he would soon undergo facial surgery to give his face a more refined look. But later, When he did change his face, it ended up looking somewhat unnatural, almost ghost-like, which didn't look good to me. That's just my personal opinion. It may differ for others. So Michael made up his mind, and from then on, he gradually started using makeup and other cosmetic enhancements. Then we see a family meeting. Michael's father was the boss of the family. The entire Jackson 5 group and their music operations were controlled by him. Everything happened based on his decisions. During the meeting, his father said they would go on tours. By tour, he meant performing across different parts of cities over a long period, sometimes in one area, sometimes in another, doing shows regularly and earning huge amounts of money from each performance. Even though everyone else agreed with this idea, Michael didn't. He directly refused his father and said he would no longer go on group tours. He wanted to work alone and focus only on recording albums. Michael preferred working independently. This reveals something important. Michael had reached this level of success largely because of his family, especially his father and brothers. But now he seemed to deny that and said, "You've already gotten what you needed from me. I don't owe you anything anymore. I can't work with you now. I will only record songs with big music companies." Hearing this, Michael's father became extremely angry. He said, "What is this boy saying? I trained him with my own hands, and now he talks back to me." An argument broke out between father and son. At one point, his father even got up from his chair and rushed toward Michael to hit him. That habit of physical abuse was still there, even though his sons were now grown, some nearly 30, and Michael around 20. Still, his father tried to attack him, but he couldn't, because Michael walked away in anger. After that, feeling hurt, Michael got into his luxury car with his bodyguard Bill and went on a long drive. People recognized his car, and fans could see him through the glass. They were excited, cheering for him, celebrating his presence. But inside, Michael was deeply hurt. His father still abused him mentally and physically. Even that day, he would have been hit if he hadn't walked away. They drove to a quiet place near the hills, surrounded by beautiful scenery. There, Michael opened up to Bill. He said that from a very young age, his father had physically abused him. He had a childhood, but he never got to enjoy it like other kids who played and grew up happily. He shared all this with Bill because Bill had been with him for a long time as a personal bodyguard, and their relationship had grown into something like a close friendship. Bill advised him, "You're already 18. You should start making your own decisions about your life. You shouldn't spend your whole life living for your father or your family like this." Bill understood that Michael's father treated him like a money-making machine and never allowed him to fulfill his personal desires. As a human being, as time went on, Michael's shows increased, and his popularity kept growing. After one of his shows, there was a meeting with the producer and the company team to plan the next performance, with Michael involved. In that meeting, we are introduced to a man named John. John is basically a lawyer. He handles legal matters for big music companies and major artists. At that time, Michael tells John, "I want to do something in my life, but my father isn't letting me. He blocks me in everything. He wants me to live my life his way forever." Hearing this, the lawyer says, "All right, first, remove your father from the position of manager and hand over all responsibilities to me. I'll handle everything." This lawyer, John, understood that Michael was on his way to reaching a huge level of success very quickly. So if he could become Michael's assistant or manager, it would be very beneficial for him financially. Anyway, the scene ends there. Michael agrees. With the lawyer's help, He prepares a document and sends it to his father through a letter. When his father receives the letter at night, he is completely shocked. He learns that from that day on, Michael has removed him from the position of manager. That means his father no longer has any authority, because Michael has appointed a new manager. After learning this, Michael's father breaks down. In a very emotional state, he tells Michael's mother, Kath, "Look, your son has grown up now. The one I trained with my own hands. Now that he's famous and rich, he's forgetting his own father." Hearing this, Michael's mother also feels hurt, thinking that Michael might be distancing himself from the family. She tries to comfort her husband and says, "Look, Michael has grown up now. We already have so much, money, a house, we're wealthy now. Let it go. Let Michael live his life the way he wants. Why hold him back?" But Michael's father couldn't accept the fact that his own son had removed him from the manager position. Then the scene changes again. We see Michael always moving around with his bodyguard. In this scene, Michael goes to a shopping center where he is shopping. At that moment, a lot of children come up to Michael. He gives autographs to everyone and also hands out gifts. By this time, Michael has a lot of money. He is considered one of the top wealthy figures in America, because the more his records sell, the more income he earns. This shows that Michael actually has a very soft heart. There have been reports and accusations about him involving inappropriate behavior with children, but from this situation, it appears that he genuinely enjoys being around kids because of his kind nature. After giving out many gifts, Michael returns home. There, he spends time affectionately with his pet chimpanzee. Just then, his father arrives holding the letter and says, "Son, I raised you with so much effort and made you popular, and now you've left your own father." Hearing this, Michael replies, "Dad, if you want to achieve something big in life, you have to change yourself. You're older now. You should take some rest. We already have everything. Cars, a house, wealth. Why are you still so focused on all of this?" The scene then shifts again. We see Michael discussing various matters with his lawyer. Since the legal system in America is quite strict, Michael wants to make sure he follows the law properly in everything he does. Otherwise, he could end up in serious trouble. That's why he keeps the lawyer as his assistant and manager and follows his advice closely. At the same time, Michael sets up a small music studio in his own home, essentially starting his own music production space. He becomes very concerned about what he can create next to surprise his audience and become an even bigger superstar overnight. He spends a long time thinking about what to give his fans. While thinking, he sees a news report on TV showing groups of black youths forming rival street gangs in America. These groups often clash with each other, and many of them are also into singing and dancing. Watching this sparks an idea in Michael's mind. He comes up with a plan and goes, along with his bodyguard, to where these groups gather. There, he sees them dancing to pop music. Michael approaches them with a friendly attitude and says, "We have a plan for you. Leave this violent lifestyle and come back to a better path. Let's all come together and create a big performance that will amaze the entire world." His warm personality and charming smile convince the gang members, and they agree, thinking it's a great idea. These groups are known for their flashy style, wearing bold outfits, large chains, and distinctive street fashion. They begin training together. Eventually, Michael performs with them, leading the dance while they follow behind him. The performance becomes incredibly popular. This project is later known as Beat It, which turns into a massive hit. The dance styles of both Michael and the group members are outstanding, making it one of the most famous performances of that time. Through this success, Both Michael and the group members earn a lot of money, and the members leave their violent past behind to pursue a better life. After this, Michael starts thinking again about what to do next to impress his audience and become even more widely recognized. He spends a lot of time at home planning and discussing ideas with producers and music companies, but no strong idea comes to him. This leaves him feeling frustrated at times. One day, while watching a horror movie at home, he suddenly gets a new idea: to create a performance featuring a vampire-style dance. Everyone would appear as vampires, creating a spooky theme. Little did he know that this concept would transform him into an even more iconic figure across America. He works extremely hard on it, recording again and again, deleting takes, trying to perfect every detail. The makeup for this performance turns out to be truly remarkable. When the final version of the song and dance is released, it creates a huge impact across America, shaking the entire music scene. This project earned an enormous amount of money, so much that it almost goes without saying. Michael became so popular that whenever he went out, people would go crazy trying to take his picture or get an interview. It would even cause traffic jams. That's how famous he had become. One day, Michael went to a CD company. Now, it's important to understand something. No matter how popular he was, there was still racial discrimination in America at that time. Black artists were often not treated fairly. No matter how talented they were, Michael told the company, "Many of my songs are not being shown on TV channels." The company replied, "The truth is, black artists are still not viewed equally by white audiences. But I will soon send notices to MTV and other TV channels that are not broadcasting your work, asking them to promote your songs." Michael then removed his sunglasses and calmly said, "Don't do it later. Do it now. If you can't do it immediately, I won't produce my music with your company anymore. I'll go to another producer." Hearing this, the head of the company immediately called the TV networks and said, "If you don't broadcast Michael Jackson's songs and shows, we will withdraw all support and end our relationship with you." In this way, Michael used calm but firm strategy to ensure his music was broadcast on all major TV channels. His assistant Bill supported him greatly. Even at a young age, Michael understood how to handle situations strategically. As time passed, Michael became even more popular. Across America, everyone knew one name: Michael Jackson. His shows were incredibly successful, and it became almost impossible for anyone to bring him down. Thousands of cameras and huge crowds would gather just for a single autograph. An important point: Michael did not have a formal education. From a very young age, instead of focusing on school, he was pushed into performing by his father. Despite that, millions of educated people admired him. This shows that success can come from talent and hard work, not only formal education. By 1983, Michael reached an even higher level of fame. His songs became popular not only across America, but also internationally. Massive crowds gathered just to see him take photos or get autographs, sometimes even causing traffic jams, which was very unusual. As he continued performing successful shows, his family also felt proud because their dreams were being fulfilled. However, during a party, Michael's father jokingly said, "Michael is our money machine." This deeply hurt Michael. His assistant Bill was also upset, and even his mother seemed uncomfortable. It was not something his father should have said. An argument followed, and his father left angrily. Later, a major boxing promoter named Don King approached Michael's father on behalf of Pepsi. He proposed that Michael go on tour and perform shows for Pepsi, which could bring in millions of dollars. Michael's father agreed, and even took an advance payment, saying he would convince Michael no matter what. That night, Michael returned home and spent time with his mother watching a movie, something they had done since his childhood. They were watching a Charlie Chaplin film, which is still famous today. After the movie, when Michael went to his room, his father came in and began pressuring him. He said, "Son, I want you to tour with your 4 brothers for Pepsi and perform together. Remember, we are black. If you leave your brothers behind like this..." In reality, Michael's father did not want Michael to succeed alone. He wanted all his sons to rise together. Even though they already had wealth, Michael was gaining all the fame, and that did not sit well with him. He loved all his sons equally, and wanted them all to share that success. Anyway, his father tells him to think about his brothers and agree to do a show. He says Michael should perform again with his brothers as part of the Jackson 5, because they are black and need to stay united. If they become separated, it won't be good for them, especially since society already neglects them and white people don't view them favorably. These words affect Michael emotionally, and he agrees. Earlier, Michael had decided that he would no longer perform with his brothers, but despite that, he changes his decision. So the show begins. During the performance, Michael is dancing with his brothers. The music director had instructed him that there would be a burst of fire on stage, and Michael would come out through it, with his brothers not directly behind him. Everything goes according to plan. At one point, a large burst of fire appears. But after the explosion, Michael doesn't realize that his curly hair has caught fire from behind. He continues dancing and singing for the audience, not noticing what has happened. During this time, a significant portion of his hair burns, leaving parts of his scalp exposed. This becomes more visible later when he is taken to the hospital. People quickly rush to put out the fire on his head, and he is immediately taken to the hospital by ambulance. At the hospital, his condition is quite serious because parts of his scalp have been badly burned. A doctor comes and tells Michael's parents, "Your son has gone through a major accident. It may take several months for him to recover." Hearing this, Michael's father responds, "Several months? Then won't Michael be able to perform?" He is worried because he has already taken a large advance payment from the Pepsi company. If the show doesn't happen, he will have to return all the money. Trend 2. Michael's mother is clearly upset by this reaction. She says, "My son is fighting for his life and you're only thinking about money. You are a very heartless person." The doctor also agrees with her and says, "You are not acting like a proper father," before leaving. But Michael's father is under heavy pressure. If the shows are cancelled, he will have to repay all the advance money to Pepsi. Meanwhile, Michael continues receiving treatment. From a closer look, it's clear that part of his scalp has been severely burned, and the affected area is badly damaged. The doctor tells him, "You'll have to use artificial hair now." Hearing this, Michael becomes very upset. The reason is that he was already insecure about his appearance, and now he has lost his naturally curly hair. From now on, he will have to perform wearing a wig. The doctor reassures him, saying, "Even though it's artificial, it will look completely natural. It's very high quality and will look just like your real hair." Eventually, Michael accepts the situation calmly, realizing there's nothing he can do. It's simply his fate. As time passes, Michael spends most of his days in the hospital watching cartoons on TV. He still has a childlike heart and enjoys those things. His mother and his assistant bodyguard Bill stay by his side, taking care of him. Outside the hospital, huge crowds gather, waiting for updates about his condition. From this, it's clear how popular he is. After some time, when Michael starts recovering, his lawyer John visits him and says, "We filed a lawsuit against Pepsi. Because of their mistake, you suffered serious damage. You lost your hair and parts of your scalp were burned. We're going to get a huge compensation from them." Since the lawyer is now managing most of Michael's affairs, he also knows that staying close to Michael will benefit him financially. He plans accordingly, knowing he will receive a share from the compensation. It shows that he is quite strategic and calculating. At the same time, there's an interesting contrast. While the lawyer looks like a typical handsome, well-presented figure, Michael, despite not fitting conventional beauty standards of the time, has reached unbelievable fame. This again shows that people rise because of their talent and work, not their appearance. Even Michael's bodyguard Bill is described as very handsome, yet it is Michael who has worldwide fame. Meanwhile, at home, Michael's father tells his wife, "I've already taken a large amount of money from Pepsi. If Michael doesn't perform, I'll be ruined. I'll have to return all that money. You have to make sure he recovers quickly." Hearing this, Michael's mother becomes upset and says, "How can you be so heartless? Our son is almost dying, and you're still thinking about money and making him perform?" This leads to an argument between them. She tells him to leave Michael alone and let him live his own life. But his father gets angry and leaves. Later, Michael recovers and agrees to perform one more TV show with his brothers, as his father wanted. Millions of people attend this show. During the performance, Michael announces that this will be his last show with his brothers. After this, he will work solo and choose his own path in life. He then delivers an incredible performance with his brothers, driving the audience, especially the fans, wild with excitement. Watching from a distance, his father becomes emotionally broken after hearing that Michael is leaving the family path and announcing it publicly. In the performance, Michael clearly stands out with his unique dance style. After the show ends, he says goodbye and prepares to leave. His father tries to stop him, saying, "You're leaving your family. If your father and brothers weren't with you, would you have reached this level?" But Michael ignores him and walks away. The scene then shifts to 1988 in London. Michael is invited there for a major performance. Huge crowds gather, millions of fans who are crazy about him. With his incredible skills and iconic dance moves, he completely electrifies the audience, and with that, the story comes to an end. Finally, a personal opinion is shared. Even though Michael became hugely successful, leaving his family behind may not have been the right decision. His father and brothers played a big role in his journey, and perhaps he should have continued forward with them. Despite everything, this decision feels disappointing from a personal perspective. Michael is a 2026 biographical film directed by Antoine Fuqua and written by John Logan. It follows the early life of the American singer Michael Jackson, covering his childhood with the Jackson 5 in the 1960s to the Bad World Tour in the late 1980s. Jackson is portrayed by his nephew Jaafar Jackson and as a child by Giuliano Valdi, both in their film debuts. The supporting cast includes Nia Long, Kaylin Durrell-Jones, Laura Harrier, Jessica Sula, Mike Myers, Miles Teller, and Coleman Domingo. Development began in November 2019, when it was reported that Graham King had secured the rights to produce a film about Jackson, with Logan attached to write. Lionsgate announced the film in February 2022. In January 2023, Fuqua was announced as the director, and Jaafar was cast as Michael. Further casting took place from January to April 2024. After delays caused by the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, principal photography took place between January and May 2024. After a clause was discovered in a legal settlement, references to the 1993 child sexual abuse allegations against Michael were removed. The third act was revised, and reshoots took place in June 2025, bringing the total production budget to $155.2 million. Michael premiered at the Uber Eats Music Hall in Berlin on April 10, 2026, and was released on April 22 in the UK by Universal Pictures and on April 24 in the United States by Lionsgate. It received generally negative reviews from critics, who praised Jaafar's performance but criticized the story as sanitized. Michael grossed $991.6 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing biographical film, the highest-grossing Lionsgate film, and the second highest-grossing film of 2026. A sequel is in development.